that a better situation? Okay, sure. Whatever. Fuck it. We're just gonna get started. Hey, book besties. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Amanda. If you're new here, I obviously love to read. Today is going to be a little bit of a long one because we are going to go through my December, January, and February wrap up. I know. Wowie. If you didn't see my last video, which you should totally go watch it, it was a 90+ book haul, which I know, ridiculous. However, it was necessary. No, it totally wasn't, but it was fun nonetheless to buy all of those books and film and show them to you. I explained in that video why I was gone from YouTube for about 2 months, and essentially I was at my parents' house. They live in the middle of nowhere, and I learned pretty quickly that their internet speed didn't allow me to upload content. So yeah, that meant I wasn't able to record my monthly wrap-ups for December, January, and then I came home in February. So here we are. I have been reading a ton lately, more than I kind of thought I would be reading, which is awesome. One of my goals for this year was not necessarily to focus on how many books I was reading, though I guess subconsciously, obviously, I want to try and read as many as possible, but I want to try and read, obviously, the majority off of my own bookshelves, which when you see how many of my physical books I read in the last 3 months, you're going to be like, girl, what are you doing? And I have read a lot, okay? Way more than I personally thought I was going to. However, I did still read a lot of Kindle books. Sue me. I totally forgot where my train of thought was going there. Anyways, I've read a lot of books and we have a lot to go through, so let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, I do have all of my reviews printed out so that I can refresh my memory right here with you. If you see me looking down for a couple of seconds, just know I'm looking down at my notes because your girl has a squirrel brain. We are going to start in December, and I'm going to go in the order in which I read these books. Starting off in December, this was actually part of my last reading vlog, which was reading like a cozy holiday reading Kindle books kind of a vlog. And the first book that I read in that vlog was Holiday Romance by Catherine Walsh. I also just remembered I didn't write down any of my ratings. Fuck. I'll be right back. Hang on. Motherfucker. Actually, I don't even know if this is going to be helpful because of the way that Goodreads lists out their ratings is quite different from Fable. Like, I've been trying really hard lately to add in, like, if it's not a solid rating, like 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, if it's like a quarter or a half rating, I've been really trying to be diligent about putting it in my Goodreads review specifically. That way, come this time of the month, I can just look at Goodreads and, you know, it doesn't matter. Anyways, starting with Holiday Romance, I rated Holiday Romance 4.5 stars. This was amazing. I absolutely loved it. To get myself caught up on what it was about. Un momento. Oh, right. Okay. This story was super cute. It had a really interesting flow. It was written in an interesting way, I guess is probably the best way to say it. This book follows Molly and Andrew, who know each other at the beginning through proxy of Molly's best friend at the time. So at the very beginning, Andrew is Molly's best friend's boyfriend. And Molly finds out that her best friend is actually cheating on Andrew. And Molly, being the person she is, she was like, okay, not my business. I'm not going to get involved in it, but you suck as a person. And I kind of don't want to be friends with you anymore, which mood. Molly is Irish. So every Christmas season, she flies home to Ireland to be with her family. And this particular year, she runs into Andrew because he ends up being her seatmate because he is also Irish, going home to Ireland for the holidays. Almost immediately before the plane takes off, Molly's best friend is now texting Andrew to basically tell him, hey, I'm cheating on you and we need to break up. And Molly's like, oh God, I literally know what's going to happen. And she tries to prevent it and it doesn't, and it's awkward, but then they become friends. And anyway, for about 10 years, every year around Christmas time, they end up probably on the same plane, maybe not sitting next to each other, but they do end up kind of like talking to each other at the airport, maybe on the plane, things of that nature. Over the span of this 10 years, they develop a really strong friendship. You're getting like the past stories of what's happened between their friendship and then also the present day of what's going on with them now. And in present day, they are stuck at the airport because there's a snowstorm and they're trying to figure out like, how can we possibly get home if none of the flights are leaving, blah, blah, blah. It just goes from there. So it's essentially friends to lovers with a past present timeline. Absolutely loved it. Fell in love with Catherine Walsh and her writing. I was literally flabbergasted. Her writing is absolutely amazing. Next, in the same reading vlog, I read Set the Record Straight by Hannah Bonam-Young, which was a novella, like less than 200 pages. I hated this. I think I generously rated it 2 stars. Some things that I did like about it. Think I enjoyed Hannah Bonam-Young's writing. It's the first thing I've ever read by her, unfortunately, so is what it is. I wish I would have probably read something else first, but at least it probably only goes up from here. Something I really did enjoy about this story is that it had queer as well as neurodivergent representation. One of the main characters has ADHD and the other main character has autism. So that was really cool to see. However, this was a sapphic romance and it had a lot of like stereotypical things in it that were like offensive ? I don't know what her intention was when creating this story, but as a queer person, it was uncomfortable because there was a U-Haul situation. There was this feeling of like, I'm gonna settle just because you're another gay person that I happen to like. It just wasn't a fun time for me. So, like I said, generously, it was rated 2 stars. In that same vlog, I also read The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year by Ali Carter, which was kind of a wild card book for me. It's not something that I really planned to read. However, the ebook happened to go on sale and I bought it and it was Christmas time and I figured why not go ahead and read it. This book took me completely by surprise. I rated it 4.5 stars. This was literally one of my favorite books of last year in general. That's how good this book was. The story follows 2 authors who are essentially work rivals and they get sent to England, I think, to spend what is essentially the Christmas time season with the female main character's favorite author. This lady is a mystery crime author. So when they get to her mansion, they're having a dinner party and funny enough, an unexpected murder mystery / missing persons mystery happens with the author that they're going to stay with. And they, being work rivals, end up having to work together, and over the span of them working together to solve the mystery, they fall in love. And oh my god, it was just amazing. Like, I can't explain how much I loved this male main character and how unexpected this was. I wasn't expecting this to be a romance, much less a really good romance, and it was really, really good. Ali Carter, my god, please write more contemporary romance because you are very good at it. Next, in December, I did read one of my physical books because I was planning on recording a second Christmas time reading vlog, which was going to be me reading physical books that I own. However, I ended up scrapping it because A, the books weren't good, and B, I wasn't able to upload it after I got through editing it. So anyways, moving on to book 4 that I read in December, I read He Sees You When You're Sleeping by Alta Hensley. This is the first book that I've read in a while that I regret purchasing, like genuinely regret spending money on this because it was absolutely atrocious. I was really excited about reading that book because I have mentioned this so many times, your girl loves a stalker in books. It's a stalker Christmas romance and the male main character is a firefighter, and that seemed different than what I normally read, and it was. This was really frustrating for me to read because the first 60% I was really enjoying. I love like the footage that I have from this vlog. Maybe I'll insert it here. I was literally giggling, kicking my feet. I was so excited about it. I think about 30% into this book. I read 2 chapters, got like halfway into chapter 3 and then fell asleep earlier. I had some time to think about it. And when I started getting back into chapter 3, I literally wanted to DNF it. However, I had the thought of just push through. Like, you're literally only in the first 15 pages. It's probably going to get better. The premise is obviously something that I'm interested in. So literally just continue, bitch. So I did. And I think by chapter 6, which is about 40 pages in, I was like, okay, you got me. I think we're about at the halfway mark and things have gotten very spicy very quickly, and I'm not gonna lie, I am here for what just happened. I am going into chapter 18, chapter 16 and 17. Love it. If you could see my feet, I am literally kicking my feet and giggling. And then it completely went to shit. I went from, wow, the writing in this book is terrible and I kind of hate it, to, wait, I actually kind of like the premise and the characters, and, you know, it was a giggly fun time. And then the third act breakup conflict situation happened, which we knew was coming. And it always worries me when this specific thing is the conflict, because it's never executed properly. In my opinion. And this one was, I feel especially messy. It had the worst possible ending imaginable. It just all around sucked. And then as I continued seeing reviews for this book on Fable after I finished it, I just kept being refueled with rage because there were so many people comparing it to Lights Out. And I was like, huh? These are not even remotely the same book. They're not. No, because there's the stalker? Absolutely not. Go read some more dark romance books and get back to me on whether you still think they're similar, because they're literally not. By the way, I rated He Sees You When You're Sleeping, again, generously 2 stars, and that's simply because I didn't DNF it, but I wish I would have. Next book I read in December is Lovelight Farms by B.K. Borison. This was my So this is my third B.K. Borison book. I read First Time Caller when it came out last year, and then I also read her most recent holiday book, Good Spirits? ? Back in November, then Lovelight Farms. Now, I will say it was fine. I didn't absolutely love it. I didn't absolutely hate it. I was planning on immersively reading it with the audiobook as well as the physical book. I think what ended up happening is I just didn't care. Just decided to listen to the audiobook while I was doing Instacart. And though I can make that happen well, sometimes this was unfortunately not one of those times. And I found myself being distracted, not paying 100% attention, and that really degraded my general rating of the book and understanding of everything that was going on. I did end up rating this 3 stars. This was a friends to lovers situation, but I just found the entire premise weird. Moving on to book number 6 that I read in December, and keeping on the same track of books that I really didn't like, I read See You Next Winter by Holly June Smith. Now, this one was really, really disappointing for me because I read the first book in this series last year. I think it's called Can I Tell You Something? And that was literally one of my favorite books because it was really well written. The premise was really interesting. It was really, really, really hot. And this one was literally all smut, no plot. The plot that was there was just atrocious. This was supposed to be friends to lovers. Probably there was supposed to be some pining in there. I didn't feel it. There was no tension. It was just, I don't know. It was just horrible and I fucking hated it. Book number 7 that I read in December is called Fake Santa Apology Tour by Julie Olivia. This one I simply picked up because it was a holiday book and I've read Julie Olivia before and enjoyed it. It was a silly fun time. It was a vibes read. Was it the most amazing plot? No, but it was cute. It's just about a lady who dates fake Santas and goes on essentially an apology tour to all of these different fake Santas, kind of explaining why they broke up, why it didn't work out, whatever. And again, it was just a silly fun time. Book number 8 that I read in December was Thrum by Meg Smitherman. Thrum, I also rated 3 stars, though I think this one was 2.5. This is a sci-fi romance novella. I read this solely based off of recommendation by Laura, who said, quote, "You don't know whether to be scared or turned on." I went into this expecting alien smut, and that's not what I got. This book follows a girl who wakes up on a spaceship and basically the rest of her crew has died in stasis going to where they are now and where she's waking up. However, she realizes pretty quickly that something is wrong with their ships. She can't go anywhere. She needs to be rescued. I think she emits an emergency SOS signal, and there happens to be a ship nearby who comes to her, lets her dock her ship inside of that ship, and then she ends up meeting the alien who is manning that ship. To her, it looks like a regular dude. And she's like, whoa, why do you look like a human? And he's like, oh, well, because there's some weird technology that you humans can't understand. And, you don't understand how my species looks or what my spaceship would look like and blah, blah, blah. So the technology allows you to see these things in a way that you can comprehend. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to comprehend it and it wouldn't make any sense. So this is not really what I look like. This is how you're seeing me. Weird. So then she gets on his ship and she's there for at least a few days. And over the course of the next few days, she starts losing her fucking mind. Or so you think. I don't know. It was just weird. There wasn't any spice, and I was really expecting there to be alien smut, and there just wasn't. It just wasn't what I was expecting. And I really was just disappointed. And that's my bad for having wrong expectations. The last book that I read in December was Wreck My Plans by Jillian Meadows. And this is unfortunately another case of I should have immersively read it instead of just listening to the audiobook. Here's what happened. Ace and I left on the 19th of December to go home to my parents' house. So the rest of these books were read between December 1st and December 19th. And then between December 19th and December 31st, I read absolutely nothing except for this one audiobook. And I listened to this audiobook the majority of the way in the car on the way to Georgia. However, I noticed pretty quickly when I started listening to this that I couldn't understand the male main character while being in the car. However, I didn't have another audiobook loaded, so I just went with it. And like I said, I listened to most of it, and then at some point before the end of December, I had a second to finish it. And I also rated Wreck My Plans 3 stars. Moving into January's reads, I started January with another Catherine Walsh book. This one is called Snowed In. This is the second book in that series, which is called Fitzpatrick Christmas, and it follows Andrew's brother named Christian and a girl that he meets named Megan. So this book starts out with Megan about to get married, and she ends up becoming a runaway bride. And on her way, literally running away from her wedding, she runs into Christian. Some sparks are there. It's an interesting meet cute, that's for sure. But then they go on about their lives and they end up running into each other present day. And they end up doing a fake dating situation that obviously benefits both of them. And it was adorable. This book really made me realize that I must really love fake dating. Two people are so stupid that they can't see that they love each other. I don't know, it just gets me literally every time. So Snowed In, I also rated 4.5 stars. Moving into book 2 that I read in January, I'm just gonna combine books 2, 3, 5, 7, and 8 together because they're all part of a series. But I did read the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey. I have really mixed feelings about this. In general, I rated almost every book 4 stars except for book 4 because the ending made my fucking skin crawl. I didn't like the way that it ended, which then made the last book for me a little wishy-washy. This book follows Lana Myers, who is a female serial killer. She is hunting a group of men who did something really, really awful to her. I mean, truly disgusting things to her when she was younger. And so now she's grown up and she's going after each and every one of them individually and making them pay in some pretty gruesome ways. Also at the beginning, she has a meet cute with the male main character whose name is Logan. He is an FBI agent who is hunting serial killers. So think Criminal Minds. This book had very Criminal Minds vibes. So if you like that, you'll probably like this story. I did love that aspect of it, but like I said, the way that book 4 ended really like ruined things for me, and then it made me not super happy about book 5. I think I ended up rating the whole series 4 stars, but we're gonna drop that down to 3.5 because the more that I think about it, the more that I realize how much I didn't love it. So 3.5 stars for the Mindfuck series. Next, 3 books. I read 3 books out of a currently 5-book series. Look at me go. One of my reading goals for the year is to, if I start a series, to finish it or at least get caught up as much as I can. Because last year I kept reading the first book in a series and never continuing on, which is haunting me. I'm trying to do better about that this year. So I did read 3 out of 5. I believe that all 5 books are out. However, only the first 3 had audiobooks at the time. I believe audiobook for the 4th one has come out, but it's not at the library yet, and I don't really want to spend a credit on it. So I've read the first 3. I will eventually catch up on books 4 and 5, but this is the SCU hockey series by JJ Mulder. The first book was Shots on Net, which I rated 4.5 stars. I literally am getting goosebumps thinking about this series because I loved every single one of these books with my whole heart. The first one is the only one that I didn't rate 5 stars. I did rate book 2 and 3 5 stars. The only reason the first one didn't get 5 stars is I just didn't get that 5-star feeling, but I did with the other 2. The first one follows Zeke and Carter. They end up being roommates because Carter is looking for a roommate. Zeke is the one who happens to answer the ad, and they are complete opposites of each other. Carter is the hockey player, and he is very jock-like, and Zeke is the cute little nerdy boy, and they just complement each other so perfectly. What can I say? It was adorable. Oh, I also want to add here that something I loved so much about this series is the author made the world that she built in this series so queer friendly. I'm not gonna cry, but I want to. But their local NHL team, as well as the school's team, already has a ton of gay guys on it who are open. It just made for this really opening environment where you never had to worry about coming out being the conflict in the story, which I really appreciated. Moving on to the next one, this was Save the Game by JJ Mulder, book 2 in that series. This one was a solid 5 stars. This one follows Max and Luke. Trigger warning. Let me just say that real quick. Trigger warning. Max had some sexual assault happen. He didn't really know who it was. He didn't know exactly what happened that night, and it has left him with panic attacks and PTSD, and he's really struggling to live, essentially, after this event happened to him. He ends up meeting Luke, who isn't a hockey player. Max is a hockey player, but Luke is actually on the baseball team at the college that they go to. They meet at a diner. Their chemistry is already there. They end up becoming really good friends. Love the... fucking A. Sorry, just thinking about this book makes me so emotional because there's not a lot of representation out there for men being sexually assaulted. And in case you're wondering, that's a thing that happens as well. And to be able to see this happen was absolutely heartbreaking. However, the way that the author handled how it happened, how Max felt about it, how Luke was able to comfort him and not necessarily make up for it, but he kind of got his revenge, it was just beautiful. It was really, really, really good. Like I said, obviously, a month and a half later, I'm still crying about this book. It was really, really, really good, and you should read it. Next one that I read was On the Edge, also by JJ Mulder. This is number 3 in the SCU hockey series. This was another solid 5-star read. My heart. When I think about this book, I absolutely love it so much. These are 2 books that I would reread tomorrow because that's how good they were. So this one follows Atlas and Henry. Atlas is the grumpy, kind of emo kid who's not an athlete whatsoever. He just goes to the school, and he meets Henri, who is a German hockey player, and they are total opposites. So Henry is is like the sunshine in the grumpy sunshine that's in this book. He is liked by pretty much everybody. So when Atlas doesn't like him, he takes it super personally and kind of like makes it a mission to get Atlas to like him. And spoiler alert, it works. And Atlas absolutely hates that he ends up liking Henry, but it's absolutely adorable. Given that in my personal life, I have a grumpy sunshine trope in my own relationship and I am the grump, shock surprise, it warms my heart anytime I read about a grumpy sunshine because I don't know why anyone likes us. I really don't. I don't know what we do to deserve sunshiny people in our lives, but I'll take it. And you may be wondering, Amanda, at what part in January did you read any physical books? Because these have all so far been Kindle books. Starting with book 10 in January, I did read a physical book, and that was Conform by Ariel Sullivan. Oh, this book. I ended up rating this maybe 4.5 stars. I literally am still thinking about this book, and I read it a month and a half ago. This is a dystopian romantasy about an FMC named Emmeline who lives in a world called the City. In the City, it is made up of 4 main casts: major defects, minor defects, the elite, and the Illum, who are all the way at the top. Emmeline has just come of age, which in their world is 27, so don't think that this is about minors. She is 27, but she's at the age where they are going to allow her to mate and reproduce. And that's kind of supposed to be her life's purpose. Emmeline gets mated to Colin, who is the first member of the Illum to choose a mate in over 100 years, and he is also the youngest member of the Illum. Along the way, during their courting phase, she also meets this other man named Hal. Context real quick. Emmeline is considered a minor defect. She has heterochromia, so her eyes are 2 different colors. That is her defect. This is preventing her from being part of the elite. So basically, the elite are considered like perfect people. The Illum are perfect people that are in charge. And then you've got minor defects who have something wrong with them. And then there's major defects who either have something severely wrong with them, or they used to be minor defects or elite and they went against the government and the elite. So therefore they got brought back down to the lowest ranking, which again is major defects. Emmeline meets Hal, who is a major defect. And he's a major defect not because something is really wrong with him, but because at some point he did go against the government. So he used to be part of the elite. Now he's not. Now he's looked at as a bad person. And he is kind of heading the rebellion, if you will, that's going on in the lower sectors of their world. And she essentially ends up being in a love triangle between the person that she's mated to, who's the good guy, and Hal, who is a major defect, who is the bad guy. And I will say by the end of the book, you literally, first of all, don't know who she's going to choose, but B, you don't know who is good and who is bad. And that is extremely unsettling. When I got through reading this book, I immediately Googled, when's the next book coming out? That's how much I liked it. I found out that the next book comes out soon. It actually comes out this month in March. However, the next book that comes out is part of a prequel trilogy. It is not a continuation of this specific story. And this is planned to be a 9-book series consisting of 3 trilogies. Yep. Am I going to continue? Absolutely. Am I really not happy about that? Yeah. Moving into book 11 that I read in January, there's going to be a lot of people who are very happy that I finally read this book, and that is Direbound by Sable Sorensen. This fucking book, 1,000,000% worth the hype. This is absolutely going to be one of my favorite books of the entire year. This was so incredibly good. Oh my god. Oh my god. I cannot wait for May. In case you're wondering, this is 6 stars. If you are unfamiliar with what Direbound is about, it is about the FMC named Marin, who lives in a super poor part of town. She's nothing special, etc. Her mom is going through an illness that appears like dementia. So she's kind of losing her mind. She doesn't remember who people are. She's having hallucinations, so on and so forth. Marin, strangely, starts out in this story with a long-term boyfriend, and she keeps that long-term boyfriend throughout the book. So I was really confused, like, huh? You'll see. Just read it. But in their world, there are nabbers, creatures who are stealing children and they don't know why. So one night, Marin's little sister, Sayla, is kidnapped, and that obviously sends Marin into a panic attack, and she needs to find her sister and rescue her. So she feels as though the only way to make this happen is by joining the army. So when she gets there, they're like, oh, wow, perfect timing. We're about to start the bonding trials of the dire wolves. And she's like, what? I just want to join the army and find my sister. Like, can I just do this in peace? And they're like, no, sorry. You're here now. You have to go through the bonding trials. It just goes from there. And it is so fast paced. It hooks you literally right in the beginning and has you on the edge of your seat until the end of the book. And you're like, what the fuck? I literally need book 2 right now. Literally right now. I need it. I cannot wait for May. I'll be reading it literally the day that it comes out. Book number 12 that I read in January was Hollow by the Twisted Sisters, aka Carolyn Peckham and Susanne Valenti. This was an interesting read. I was expecting to like this more than I did. I did end up rating it 4 stars because it was objectively good, but it just wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. You know, it was good, but I was waiting for it to be great, kind of a situation. The story follows Ferris, who is a human who wants to join something called the Hunt. And the Hunt is something that takes place in what is essentially an enchanted forest. It's only allowed to happen every 40 or 50 years. So it's something that a lot of people have been waiting for. They've been training their lives for it. She joins this group of people, and essentially what their mission is to collect the 13 animal spirits of the forest, because if they can collect them all, does that sound familiar? They can break the land's ancient curse. Emily Funn told Madison Kate that this was basically a high fantasy version of Pokemon Go, and I actually can't unsee it. If you love Pokemon and you love dragons and you love romantasy, you'll love this. It was good. Like I said, it was good. I was just waiting for it to be great. Book number 13 that I read in January is a manga called Afterglow. This is an MM romance between a cardiovascular surgeon and a member of the Yakuza, which is basically the Japanese version of the mafia. I rated this 3 stars. I'll be so real with you guys. The story absolutely sucked. However, the art in this book is stunning. I mean, just look at the cover, first of all. The art on the inside of the book. Trying to show you something that's not super explicit. So the art in the book is also so pretty. I love this art style so much. It was like at least 50% smut. It was really good, but the story itself, lacking. One final book that I read in January was unfortunately a DNF, and that was Unsteady by Peyton Corrine. Yeah, I got 175 pages into this, almost halfway, and just absolutely couldn't deal with it anymore. I ended up picking up the audiobook, hoping that it would help me get through the book, and I just hate the female main character with so much of my energy that I could not continue it. I would still consider it at the moment a soft DNF because I don't like that I DNF'd this. It doesn't sit well with me. It's something that I feel like if I just push through, maybe I'll like the book. And again, I have the audiobook. I own the audiobook. So it feels icky to me to have this unfinished, but I just wasn't enjoying it. And it could have been a mood thing. I don't know, but I just personally really don't like when the FMC is mean to the male main character and he doesn't fight back and she doesn't change. That seems to be how things were going, and I wasn't a huge fan. Moving into February. I started off finishing, because I read most of it in January, but I didn't finish it until February, was Game Changer by Rachel Reid, which is the first book in the Game Changers series, which everyone knows because of Heated Rivalry. In January, I caught all of the hype that Heated Rivalry was getting. I wanted to watch it, but I wanted to read it first, but my OCD was telling me that I needed to read these series in order, so I started with Game Changers. First of all, can we just talk about how awful the audiobooks are? I assume because of the popularity that this is going, like the audiobooks are going to be redone at some point, but they're not right now and they're fucking terrible. All of the books have the same narrator and it's one narrator for multiple characters and his voice is atrocious. Absolutely hated them. And this is pretty much the reason why I haven't continued on in the series yet, because I currently have a hyperfixation with immersively reading, and if I can't immersively read it, I basically don't want to read it. It took me a while, but I did finish Game Changer. It was meh. As a person who has read a lot and really enjoys romance, this was on like the bottom tier of romances. It is like 75% smut, which is fine. I enjoyed the smut, but it was more smut than plot. And the plot that was there was kind of boring. And this being Rachel Reid's first book, it just wasn't written very well. And I kind of didn't like it. So I rated it 3 stars. It was fine. Wasn't anything great. Next book that I read in February is super random, but I was just in the mood for something smutty. I listened to this book on my way home from Georgia back to Florida, and that was Priest by Sierra Simone. This has been on my shelf for quite some time, so I am really glad that I got around to it. I definitely want to read the rest of the series because I loved this. I rated this 4 stars. This story basically follows Tyler, who is a priest who he's kind of struggling with the fact that he's a priest, in the sense of he got into the priesthood under really specific circumstances that wasn't just, I want to be a priest. He's almost punishing himself for something. And because of that, he's having a lot of second thoughts. He meets a girl who confesses some things to him and they end up having a spicy fun time in the church, and then they kind of can't stop seeing each other, and yeah, it just kind of goes from there. I loved this audiobook. This audiobook is narrated by Jacob Morgan, one of my favorite narrators. What I really loved about this is this entire book, like 95% of it, is from the male main character's point of view, which is almost unheard of. We need more books that are contemporary romance where the male point of view takes up the majority of the book, because that was amazing. I will say though, for this one and the next one, which is Midnight Mass, which is the sequel novella to Priest, read your trigger warning. There were some really heavy topics in book 1 and book 2 that I was not expecting, and it was very emotional. Also, on my way home from Georgia, I listened to Midnight Mass directly after listening to Priest, and it's just a continuation of their story. Not that there really needed to be one, but it was there, so I listened to it. And this was the same way. This entire thing was from the male main character's point of view, except for the epilogue. Now, one thing I am going to complain about real quick is the epilogues of both of these books are from the female character's point of view, but they're written in second person. Why? It's very weird. It gave me the serious ick. Absolutely did not like that part, but the rest of it was great. Moving on, the next book that I read is a romantasy called Kissed by the Gods by Caty Rogan. This is a very new release, and the reason why I ended up picking this one up is because it has an incredible average rating of like 4.5, 4.6, 4.7 maybe, and the book is blurbed by Sable Sorensen, and I just got through reading Direbound, so I was like, if Sable Sorensen loved it, I'm gonna love it. And look at the average rating. There's no way this is a bad book. In my personal opinion, this is not a good book. I'm not gonna say it's a bad book, but I did not like it. I think I ended up rating it 3 stars. You know, I literally grabbed my computer so that I could tell you the actual ratings of things, and I'm not even using it. So I did rate Kissed by the Gods 3 stars. However, that might be rounded up. It might be 2.5 stars on Fable. In this moment, thinking about it, it's 2.5 stars. I literally put in my review, I'm actually kind of pissed that Sable Sorensen blurbed this book because that's what convinced me to read it. let me start with the things that I liked about this book. This book follows a regular human named Lena who starts out working on her family's farm. There are some tragic things that have already happened to her family. The world that she lives in is very war-based and volatile. And this man shows up one day. His name is Riot. He shows up to kill her, but instead ends up kidnapping her. And then something also happens to her brothers. When he kidnaps her, he essentially takes her to a kingdom-adjacent war college. I struggle to relate it to Fourth Wing, but it is kind of like Fourth Wing in the sense that it is a war college and they're, going to classes and training and blah. That was all really similar to Fourth Wing. So when she gets there, everyone is upset that Riot kidnapped a regular human. Humans don't belong in their world. The people that belong in their world are called alters. Alters are people who have some sort of abilities that are special. Yeah, they have some sort of powers, basically. And because she's a regular human, they're like, yeah, no, she doesn't belong here, but we're gonna test her to see if she belongs here. So they test her, she passes, they find out she is actually an alter, and she is the first female alter to exist in like over 1,000 years. So everyone is flabbergasted by the fact that she is here and she is a she. Then they're also amazed by the power that she has, because that power has not been seen in several hundred years. There's also some really interesting creatures in this book. The creature of choice that they end up bonding with is called, I don't remember, but they're essentially Pegasus, like winged horses. And then there's also Dragoths, which are dragons essentially, but they have like razor sharp teeth like tails. So that was pretty cool. However, that's kind of where me liking things ends and my complaining starts. I found this book to be extremely confusing. The way that it was written was almost like you didn't have an editor. So there was a lot of things that could have been like pared down, explained better. There were a lot of battle scenes that just straight up didn't make any sense because of the power that Lena has. I think it's the last battle scene that was the most confusing. And she's like dipping in between realms and it just wasn't written well enough for you to like understand what was going on. And then there was the way that it ended. This is, I guess, a trope that happens in books and I hate it. Really did not like that. Felt like I was gaslit the entire book, but not in a good way. The more that I thought about it after the fact and the more reviews that I read by other people, I realized that the romance that was here was also just terrible. Like there was no build up or tension. The spicy scenes that happened seemed super random and they weren't well described. It just wasn't my favorite. I really wanted to love it. I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna finally like be on the precipice of reading the next big romantasy book, and maybe it will be, but it wasn't good. Read it for yourself and find out. The next book that I read, I wish I had a physical copy of. I will buy it once it finally fucking comes out. But it was To Cage a Wild Bird by Brooke Fast. So I actually got the ALC of the audiobook, and then it's been on Kindle for quite a while, but the physical copy isn't yet available in the US. So this is a dystopian romantasy between our FMC named Raven. She is a girl who, of course, grew up in the lower sector of their world. She's poor, blah, blah, blah. They live in a world called Davidium, which is a post-war dystopian version of the US. And in their world, any crime is punishable by being sent to these gigantic prison systems that they have. So in their specific area of the world, their prison system is called Endlock. Endlock is not just a regular prison. It is a prison system that has 3 different ranks, just like in their outside world. So there's like the lower, middle, and upper rankings of things. And then the elite are able to pay money to hunt specific prisoners. So basically they don't go there to be prisoners, they go there to die or to wait to die. Raven ends up finding herself there in order to break someone else out. When she gets there, she meets a bunch of other people. It's kind of like a found family kind of a situation. I was really hoping this was going to be a standalone, but I found out very quickly at the end that it is in fact not, and it is the start of a series, and it was amazing. I rated it 4.5 stars. I am still thinking about it. It is worth every bit of hype if you've seen any. The next book that I read in February was Sleigh Ride by Lauren Beale. This is kind of a random book, but I read the first book in this series, which is called Slaycation, by the way. I read the first book called Sinner's Retreat last year, and it was one of my favorites. If you love Butcher and Blackbird, you will love this series. It is equally, if not more, unhinged, but it does follow the same kind of premise. It's two serial killers who end up falling in love. It's different because in Sinner's Retreat, it introduces Sinner's Retreat, which is an annual get-together of serial killers so that they can be around like-minded people, and they are hunting what they call cattle, which are basically people who've done really, really awful things. So none of them are killing just to kill. They're killing actually bad people who, in my opinion, also deserve to die. The first book follows two serial killers who, again, end up falling in love. Then the second book follows the main character from the first story's brother and the best friend of the FMC from the first book, who is not a serial killer yet, but she's essentially the apprentice to the FMC in the first book, and she's working towards also becoming a serial killer. This one takes place in Alaska versus the other one was in like a paradise tropical island kind of a situation. So two totally different settings, but this one was great to read in winter. Basically, all of their friends, these serial killers, get together at a mansion in Alaska for their annual Sinner's Retreat. Kat, the FMC, which is Kendra's best friend from book 1, and Bennett, Ezra's brother from book 1 as well, they both absolutely fucking hate each other. And they are constantly doing nothing but jabbing and fucking with one another until they realize maybe this is misplaced sexual desire. It just kind of goes from there. They have sort of a friends with benefits situation that obviously turns into more. It was great. I also rated it 4.5 stars. Book 7 that I read in February was Bitten by Jordan Stephanie Gray. I have this beautiful edition that I got from Target. I picked this up because Emmy read this recently, and when Emmy reads things, I feel the need to understand her feelings about it. So I picked it up and read it. I put in my review that this was simultaneously better and worse than I was expecting, and that's a pretty good way to put it. I did rate this 3.5 stars. Things that I liked about this book was that I thought that the writing was really well done. The storyline I thought was very cool and very interesting. There was a mystery going on the entire time that I thought was interesting as well. All the theories that I had were wrong, which was great. So that means to me it's not very predictable. The thing that I didn't like about this, the thing that like really fucked up everything, is the fact that the female main character is 17. So this is supposed to be, and I knew going into it that it was a YA book. It literally on the cover says it's Target's YA book of the year. And again, the female main character is 17. And she does not turn 18 in this book. She actually goes from 16 to 17. I don't normally complain about books where people are 17. However, this one deserves it. So this book follows Vanessa, who again starts out being a 16-year-old. She turns 17. On her birthday, her best friend Celeste is like, we need to go to a party. Her best friend is a partier. The female main character is not really into the party scene, but she loves her best friend, so she goes along with the party situation anyways. They end up going to the beach to hang out with other people from their school. However, while they're there, they run into a group of other people that they are not familiar with. They look to be about the same age, but they're like perfect looking. They can't figure out why. What they realize pretty quickly is that these people are not people, they are wolf shifters, because one of them gets in a fight with her best friend. Her best friend ends up mortally wounded, and then she also gets involved and gets bitten as well. Well, Celeste ends up dying, and Vanessa lives on. She's kidnapped by one of the people that was there at the beach that's a part of this wolf shifter group. They take her back to their kingdom. They basically leave her to rot in a jail cell for a couple of days to figure out whether or not she's going to fully complete her transformation or not. She ends up surviving. She ends up meeting two different guys at the school, Sinclair and Calix. There is a little bit of a love triangle situation going on here, but not fully. read and find out. So she becomes a werewolf, and there's some court politics drama that's going on there. That's really as much as I can tell you without spoiling anything. To get to my complaints, she's 17, and there's not one but two detailed adult-like spicy scenes. Why? How did this get published this way? I just can't even. The other thing I want to say about this is not necessarily a complaint or something I liked. It's just obvious. It's very Twilight vibey. Even the author's note at the end of the book talks about how much she loved Twilight and that's what got her into reading and writing and blah, 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 blah. It's very obvious that that's what it is. If that's your thing, definitely give it a go. However, I just really can't comprehend how this got published. I really, really can't. And also, this is actually the same publisher as Twilight. I'm sure she loves that. The front of the book is blurbed by Rebecca Ross, and then there's multiple pages at the beginning of all the praise. Rebecca Ross, Stephanie Garber, Adeline Grace, Ava Reid, Sarah Beth Hurst, Catherine Quinn, Sasha Peyton Smith, who are giving this book praise. What the fuck? I digress. Moving into book number 8 that I read in February, I picked up Done and Dusted by Lila Sage and absolutely loved it. I rated this 4.5 stars. Going into this book, my expectations were on the floor because I was, for some reason, with no knowledge of how Lila Sage actually writes, was expecting to get the same level of book as Pumpkin Spice Cafe, or really any books that Lori Gilmore has published. I, for some reason, was thinking that their writing style was going to be similar, and they are in fact not. Lila Sage is a brilliant writer. The only thing similar is that her writing is very plain, but that's where the comparison stops, because again, Lila Sage is a brilliant writer, she's a brilliant storyteller, and I loved everything about this book. This book introduces you to Rebel Blue Ranch, which is owned and ran by the Ryder family. So our FMC in this story is Emmy, also known as Clementine Ryder. She is the only girl that is in the Ryder family. She meets Luke, who is someone that she used to know, but he's kind of like the local playboy. He owns the local bar, which is where they end up seeing each other again for the first time. And it just goes from there. It's just their romance. I can't really explain more about it than that. One thing that I absolutely loved about this story is there is an author's note at the beginning of the book talking about how Lila Sage felt like there were not a whole lot of female main characters that she was able to relate to because her brain works differently given that she was diagnosed with ADHD. And she went into this story wanting to write an FMC that she could relate to. Emmy does have ADHD and panic attacks. It's not a huge part of the story, but I did love the few things that were said about it. I did immediately want to start Swift and Saddled. However, I only owned Done and Dusted when I started reading the series. Didn't expect to like it, so I didn't have any of the other books. However, I then ordered all of the rest of the book, and in the meantime wanted to read something else while I waited for it to get here. So I picked up Summer in the City by Alex Astor. My expectations for this were mid at best because I don't feel like I've heard a lot of amazing things about this book, and I've never read anything by Alex Astor, so I just really didn't know what to expect. This book really caught me off guard. This, hands down, is now one of my favorite romances, one of my favorite books, which says a lot. And in any case, I rated this 5 stars. This book follows Elle, who is a screenwriter from New York. However, I think at the beginning of the book, she's living in California. There is a prologue at the beginning where she meets someone in a club, but they end up almost hooking up, but then not liking each other, and they go their separate ways, and she feels a certain way about it, he feels a certain way about it, and it's essentially one big miscommunication. She is experiencing writer's block. The next screenplay that she's supposed to be writing centers around New York City. So basically whoever she works for is like, you need to go to New York in order to submerge yourself in New York City and write the screenplay while you're there. She does end up going to New York for the summer. She is house sitting her sister's apartment, which is one of 2 penthouse suites in this really crazy ritzy building. Next door to her is none other than the man she met at the beginning of the story, who is a tech billionaire guy. And as soon as she learns that they're neighbors, she is pissed because she fucking hates this guy. However, because of their forced proximity, they end up seeing each other a few times, running into each other, starting up a friendship, and essentially he propositions her to be a fake date for one specific event. And because it goes really well, he's like, why don't you just be my girlfriend for the summer? I'm telling you guys, fake dating is where it's at. I don't know what that trope does to me, but it does something. And I loved it. I loved every bit of this book. I laughed so hard out loud. This book made me want to be Alex Astor's best friend. It was really giving Allie Hazelwood vibes, which is funny because I think Allie Hazelwood actually blurbed the book. It had me crying. Very also similar vibes to Abby Jimenez because of the laughing one page, sobbing the next kind of dynamic that was going on. I feel like you could feel the neurodivergence in the writing, which I just really love. That was what was giving Allie Hazelwood. I really just felt like the story just perfectly encapsulates everything that makes New York, New York. It was kind of a love letter to every rom-com that's ever set in New York. I put in my review, I not only felt like I was watching a movie, but I was experiencing it. I was immersed in this story. Easy 5 fucking stars. Book 10 that I read in February was in fact Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage, which I also rated 4.5 stars. This one fully convinced me that I am in love with cowboy romances and want to read them all. This story follows Wes, who is one of Emmy's older brothers, but not her oldest brother, and Ada, who is a designer that comes from California to work with Wes on redesigning their guest property. Again, it's just their romance. I can't really tell you more about the plot. That's just what happens. I did have a small complaint about this book in that there was some certain representation in this book that I just didn't feel was full circle executed in the best way. One of those things is essentially sexual dysfunction. In the scene where they are about to have sex for the first time, they both mention having issues with sexual dysfunction. And then immediately, neither of them has any of those issues and it's never talked about ever again. So it's like, why would you even have mentioned that that was a thing if you weren't going to explore the topic more? The other thing is that Wes mentions towards the beginning of the book that he was diagnosed 5 years ago with major depressive disorder, which is something that I was diagnosed with as well. So I immediately felt really connected to Wes because of that. However, it's never really mentioned again, and he never really struggles with depression throughout the story, so it again felt like it was just there to be there, and there was no real reason for that representation to be there, but I did love it. And again, it thoroughly convinced me that I love cowboy romance, and I can't stop. I literally can't stop. Book number 11 that I read in February, I needed a palate cleanser. I had read a few too many contemporaries in a row. I needed a palate cleanser. So I ended up picking up the most talked about thriller in the last month, and that was My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. This one, also 5 stars. What? I know. First of all, girl, how many 5 stars can you have in a month? Secondly, a 5-star thriller? That is like unheard of, especially for me. But this deserved it. The web that was woven by Alice Feeney is fucking insane. This book is fucking insane from start to finish. You will literally never see the ending coming. I promise. It's crazy. This book follows a few different people. At the beginning, you have 2 main point of views and 2 main timelines. One of them is from Eden Fox. She goes out running, and when she gets back to her house key is no longer working to unlock her front door. And when she knocks, a woman who she doesn't recognize answers the door and is confused by who she is. And Eden Fox is like, who the fuck are you? Why are you inside my house? Where is my husband? What is going on? So her husband comes down the stairs and he's like, who the fuck are you? Get off my property. And she's like, what is going on here? Like, where is Ashton Kutcher? What? So it's basically following her situation and why does her husband not recognize her? So on and so forth. Then it's also following Birdie, who is a woman who just recently found out that she's going to die very soon. She essentially ends up being the investigator who is following the Eden side of the story. What's going on? Why does her husband not recognize her? She ends up going missing. She's investigating that. Once Eden Fox goes missing, then you end up getting the husband's point of view. Then You also start getting the point of view of the local cop who is working with Birdie. His name is Carter. And then you also get a couple of snippets from the daughter of Eden Fox and Harrison, as well as an unknown person at the end. All I can say is 5 fucking stars, girl. That shit was crazy. I'm gonna be thinking about this book for a very long time. Book number 12 in February was just kind of a random pickup because I was still waiting on books 3 and 4 of Rebel Blue Ranch to be delivered. So I picked up Battle of the Bookstores simply because it was on my shelf and I had the audiobook. And this quickly became my favorite romance book I've ever read, ever. This is 5 fucking stars. This is absolutely amazing. Is it cheesy? Absolutely. Are there a ridiculous amount of relevant authors and titles mentioned? Yes. I forgive it. I forgive it because this book was so good and so much more than those couple of complaints. This book is essentially a retelling of the 90s rom-com called You've Got Mail. If you haven't seen it, it's basically about 2 bookstore owners who are anonymously chatting online but don't know it. They hate each other in real life, like each other online, and their lives converge at some point. So this story follows Josie. She is the manager of what is essentially a lit fic bookstore. So they don't sell thrillers, horror, romance, etc. They really exclusively focus on lit fic. She is a person who doesn't really enjoy romance books. She's got some mommy issues that revolve around romance books. So there's her store, which is called Tabula Inscripta, and then in the middle is a coffee shop called Beans, and then on the other side is a romance bookstore called Happy Endings. Now, Happy Endings is managed by a man named Ryan. Because they are neighboring bookstores, they're all in this little shopping plaza. They have an overarching boss. The boss decides one day that he is losing money by having all 3 of these stores be separate. And he wants to combine them essentially like a Barnes & Noble and make it one big bookstore that happens to have a coffee shop inside of it. He basically tells Ryan and Josie his plan and is basically like, whichever one of you makes the most profit at the end of this construction process, I'm gonna make the manager and the other one can go fuck themselves. Now they're essentially in a competition to win the manager of the store. Much like You've Got Mail, simultaneously, as they are rivals in real life, they are chatting anonymously online and really, really like each other and have a really great friendship there. It just goes from there. So it was just literally everything. Ryan is literally top tier book boyfriend material. He's a book husband. Actually, give me a man who not only reads, but is passionate about romance books and knows everything that we know, Amazing. Last actual book that I finished in February was Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. This I was looking forward to so much because I knew that it was going to be Teddy and Gus's story, and it did not let me down. I rated this 4.5 stars. Teddy is Emmy from the first book. It's her best friend, and then Gus is Emmy's oldest brother. Teddy and Gus absolutely despise each other, so I knew going into it, it was going to be really similar to Sleigh Ride, where you've got 2 people who absolutely hate each other. They're doing nothing but jabbing and fucking with each other, but it's really just misplaced sexual desire. Again, I can't tell you much because it's just their romance. What I will say is that Gus is a single dad, and I never thought I would like a cowboy romance or a single dad romance, and this one fucking got me. It got me. It was so good. I absolutely loved it. I do have a couple of other things to mention real quick. One of them is a book that I didn't finish in February, and then another book that I DNF'd purposefully in February. So the DNF was Expiration Dates by Rebecca Serrell. This book is odd. I do have some thoughts about it. I DNF'd it at 60%, and it's a really small book. I have less than 100 pages left in this book, but I just actually can't finish it. Let me tell you what it's about and what I liked, and then I'll tell you why I DNF'd it. This book follows Daphne. Daphne is a woman in her 30s who her entire life has been handed by the universe postcards, slips of paper, cocktail napkins that basically tell her the name of the next person she's going to be in a relationship with and how long that relationship is going to last. So it'll say like Joshua 3 days, Mark 4 years, Teddy 1 night. We do get a past and present timeline in this book. The present timeline is her receiving a piece of paper that tells her the next name of her relationship partner. This one happens to have no expiration date. Her assumption is that this must be my soulmate. This is the person I'm going to be with forever. And then you're also getting random past chapters kind of building on how she got here, because one of her present best friends is one of her ex-boyfriends. So you're finding out like what happened with them. And then you get just some other people that she had this happen with and how that made her feel and whatnot. Very lit fic. You're going into it thinking it's romance. It's not. There's a reason why it's in the lit fit section and not romance. When you get to this 60-ish % mark, you find out that the female main character has been hiding a very big secret that's related to her health from the new person that she's dating, from her friends, as well as the reader. The health problem that she has is something that I worry about on a regular basis, and it basically gave me instantaneous, unshakable health anxiety. And I put it down immediately, had a panic attack for like the entire rest of the day, and decided after sleeping on it that it wasn't worth my mental health. I don't know how it ends. I can't really rate it because I don't know how it ends. It probably is a good book, but I just couldn't do it. And then my current read that I didn't finish in February is Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. I don't want to jinx it, but I'm pretty fucking sure it's going to be 6 stars. I'm like 70, maybe 80% through it now. It's literally so good. I am fucking obsessed with this book. Anyways, that was a lot. I cannot believe I remembered most of these books. That's insane. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for spending your time with me. Thank you for sticking around. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Leave all of your comments and thoughts below. If you read any of these books, how did you feel about them? Did you feel differently than me about them? I would love to know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.